And thank you for joining me, everyone. This is Chuck Morse at the Morse Force doing a little special edition here on Sunday morning. Welcome to the program. You're welcome to join me either by text, which will appear on the screen, and I'll read those and respond. Or if you're really feeling adventurous, you can actually join me by video and be seen and heard. Whoever said you should only be seen and not heard? Let's be seen and heard live here at Facebook. The program's archived on YouTube and iTunes and all the other places where I send it. I normally do this program Monday through Friday at 12 noon. I'll mention that tomorrow I'll be having a guest on who's going to be talking about a controversy right here in Newton, Massachusetts, where the school board is debating including a Jew-hating agenda and curricula for the students in a community that has a pretty large Jewish population. This is like, I would suggest putting a Ku Klux Klan agenda in an African-American community school. But that's my comparison. People may think that's a little over the top, but you'll have to watch tomorrow to find out the details. Okay. The headline of the program today is there a conspiracy against President Trump? I think that it's quite clear that there was and probably still is a conspiracy against President Trump. And the evidence, the final piece of evidence, or at least the most recent piece of evidence that I point to, is the release of this document by the House committee headed by Devin Nunes, very incriminating toward agents of the FBI and others, people in the Justice Department. Now, the enemies of Trump want to portray this, ironically, as an attack against the FBI, which it's not. It's against rogue agents of the FBI who have violated their oath of office. Now, as well as the Justice Department. And I would think that public employees in particular, but people who care about, honest government generally would be behind a cleanup of this agency from these corrupt officials. Whether you like President Trump or not, this is how our system works. We have to have a means by which we can constantly monitor all of our agencies. These agencies are accountable to the Congress, which is accountable, of course, which represents us, the people. And their job is to constantly monitor and these agencies to ensure that corruption doesn't seep in. Now, American people, of course, have a right to dissent, and that includes, to a certain degree, public officials, even though they have certain parameters that they can't cross due to the Hatch Act, which was passed in 1940 and signed into law by President Franklin Roosevelt. And that has provisions which says that it is not appropriate when you're in public employment, when you're getting a salary from the people through their taxes, when you're supposed to be doing the work of the government, which represents all the people. There are prescriptions, there are restrictions in terms of what you can and cannot do to express your political opinions, because it's not fair for you to be in a position where you would be utilizing your public trust to promote a particular political agenda or candidate or cause, whether it be liberal or conservative. And thus the Hatch Act was put in place to protect us from that kind of unfair advantage by federal employees. The Hatch Act, to say that the Hatch Act has been violated by these rogue officials is, I think, really putting it mildly. I mean, that's only the very tip of the violation, it appears. More fundamentally, they have bordered on illegalities in their hatred for President Trump. And even, I would suggest, seditious activity, because their opposition to Trump leading to certain potential illegalities, and I'm not making any flat accusations, but if true, then they are trying to subvert the entire Republican system, Republican with a small r. our republic, the American republic, the republic for which we stand. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So what have they done? What have we learned from this latest release of information? I think that Jeanine Pirro, who is an excellent talk show host, really summed it up recently in her program where she said, look, the Democrats, and I would add to that the Trump-hating Republicans, not just Democrats, they basically made up this whole concocted Russia conspiracy thing and got, in order to get permission to spy on Trump, which is what they did. Now, the permission to spy on Trump, which came from the FISA courts, was obtained primarily through this sketchy dossier, the Steele dossier, they call it. Rachel Maddow calls it the PP dossier. It's salacious, accusations against Donald Trump going way back. And it's been generally admitted that the thing was never properly vetted. It was very flimsy. It was not verified. It was put together by this British agent, Steele, who is on record through texts as saying that he absolutely hated Donald Trump, wanted to see Trump stopped, did not want to see him ever enter the presidency. So he had a mission. But the important thing is that he was being paid, and he was paid $160,000 by the Hillary Clinton campaign and by the Democratic National Committee to develop this dossier. And he was in touch with, if not he paid, and we don't know the details, it's very murky, Russian officials to give him information about Donald Trump's activities in Russia. Now, do we trust Putin? Do we trust the Russians to give something honest? I mean, this so far, I would suggest, if this is true, would be the only example of collusion with Russia that we've actually seen that is hard proven. And that is was done by the Hillary campaign and by the DNC. Maybe the other piece is Trump Jr.'s infamous meeting at Trump Tower with that Russian woman and his expectation to receive, opposition research on Hillary, or promised to receive it, which he didn't. And then his switching and shifting the story because it was embarrassing. All right, so that's possibly the other piece. There's no question. That's what it is. But the most incriminating aspect of the Steele dossier and its obtaining of Russian information to discredit Trump is that it was used, according to this release of this previously classified information, as the primary source for getting the FISA permission to spy on Trump. Now, yes, they're like the Democrats and his the anti-Trump people are quick to point out that there was other things there too. But it was admitted by several people in the classified information that without the Steele dossier, there would have been no warrant from the FISA. That the Steele dossier was the deciding factor. It was the centerpiece. And that some of the other information actually was connected to the Steele dossier because Steele himself was leaking that information to media outlets to get it into the print. In fact, that's why he was eventually fired, probably by more honest elements inside the FBI. The FBI was working for the FBI, apparently, to come up with, or he was selling this, he was giving it to the FBI. I don't know exactly the capacity by which he worked for the FBI. We do know, according to this document and according to many sources, that he was paid by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. That's been admitted by the liberal media. MSNBC acknowledges that, so that's enough for me. But what you have then is who brought this dossier and other information to the FISA court to get permission to spy on Trump. Well, there were several grants to continue the spying. And the first name on the list, of course, is James Comey, the FBI director, who President Trump fired, and whose name is all over this thing. But You had Assistant Attorney General Rod Rosenstein authorizing at least one, if not more, of these FISA reports attempting to get the spying equipment. And it was the same Rod Rosenstein who, after Comey was fired, arranged for a special prosecutor and appointed special prosecutor Bob Mueller, who is a very close friend of both Comey's and Rosenstein's. And then Bob Mueller, of course, has continued the drumbeat of attack against Trump. As long as he's in there, it's hanging over the head of President Trump. So when I talk about conspiracy is when two or more people come together and decide to do something illegal or subversive or unethical, and to do it in secret. That's what a conspiracy is, and that's what I think went on here. There are many other pieces of the puzzle. You have this FBI agent, Peter Strzok, who was a high-level, I guess the head of the intelligence department at the FBI, who was extremely partisan based upon the emails or the texts that we have gotten and seen, and that doesn't include the 50,000 odd texts that have disappeared between him and his lover, that being Lisa Page, who was a FBI attorney. Their texts and their back and forth conversation indicate an extreme hatred for Donald Trump, an attempt to try to undermine Trump by setting up what they called a secret society. Whether they were joking or not is beside the point, and by getting an insurance policy in case he was elected. And there's a good deal of evidence that they took actions. It was more than just their opinions in private, which is okay. I mean, that's their opinion. You know, they have a right to it. But the problem is that this same guy, Strzok, was the head of the investigation of Hillary Clinton in her email scandal. The same guy, Strzok, actually changed some of the language in the report that James Comey delivered, which basically exonerated Hillary Clinton by turning what she had done from a crime into just careless behavior. And it was this same guy, Strzok, who was involved in, getting a connection to the Steele dossier. So that's conspiratorial. You have people wearing many hats. You've got Strzok and his girlfriend involved both in covering up for Hillary and also setting up the attack on Trump. You've got Ron Rosenstein involved in both the attack, the FISA reports, and appointing Mueller. But other connections come up. But the fact of the matter is that they did get permission to spy on Trump. They bugged Trump Tower. They bugged his campaign employees. Who knows who else they bugged? They probably bugged his children. And they were trying to get goods on Trump and releasing information. You know, we might remember right after Trump took office that there was this whole ton of leaks of private conversations that he had had. Remember the one with the prime minister of Australia? Embarrassing conversations, private conversations. You know, the kind of conversations that most people would have. But somehow it made its way into the media, and there was a firestorm of rage. How could he be so mean? You know, that stuff. How could he be so cruel? But nobody stopped to ask exactly how it is that conversation was obtained. How is it that who got that transcript? It appears that it was gotten because of these FISA spies, these bugs. And I guess what we're left with now is whether or not the people involved in signing off on the spying, whether they knew that the Steele dossier was phony, and I think evidence suggests that they did, and yet went forward anyway just to get the bugs so that they could hurt Trump. And if they did that, then that's a crime, and they should pay a price for it. And it should be more than a slap on the wrist, which is what Lois Lerner got at the IRS when she used her agency and her government position to go after people that President Obama didn't like. I don't know if Obama was involved in it directly. It appears that he probably was, given the fact that she was seen at the White House more than several dozen times. But putting that aside, she was able to get away with it by pleading the fifth something like 30 times and leaving with her fat pension. We should let that happen this time. Plus, there's, of course, the deputy director of the FBI, McCain, whatever his name is. He resigned, or he was fired by the present director, Christopher Wray, after Wray read those reports that were released, mainly because he probably also was deeply involved in the scandal. He probably signed off on the FISA reports. He probably gave Hillary a pass. He was Comey's assistant. He's another one of these rotten, corrupted FBI agents. And so we have a scandal and seditious scandal, frankly, at the highest levels of the government, not to mention Loretta Lynch's meeting on the tarmac with Bill Clinton just before Hillary was exonerated. There's so much material that's now out in public in the broad daylight. And I think